1 Kings 17-22 World English Bible. Chapter 17. Elijah the Tishbite, who was one of the settlers of Gilead, said to Ahab, As Yahweh, the God of Israel, lives, before whom I stand, there shall not be dew nor rain these years, but according to my word. Then Yahweh's word came to him, saying, Go away from here, turn eastward, and hide yourself by the brook Cherith, that is before the Jordan. You shall drink from the brook. I have commanded the ravens to feed you there. So he went and did according to Yahweh's word, for he went and lived by the brook Cherith that is before the Jordan. The ravens brought him bread and meat in the morning, and bread and meat in the evening, and he drank from the brook. After a while, the brook dried up, because there was no rain in the land. Yahweh's word came to him, saying, Arise, go to Zarephath, which belongs to Sidon, and stay there. Behold, I have commanded a widow there to sustain you. So he arose and went to Zarephath, and when he came to the gate of the city, behold, a widow was there gathering sticks. He called to her and said, Please get me a little water in a jar, that I may drink. As she was going to get it, he called to her and said, Please bring me a morsel of bread in your hand. She said, As Yahweh your God lives, I don't have anything baked, but only a handful of meal in a jar and a little oil in a jar. Behold, I am gathering 2 sticks, that I may go in and bake it for me and my son, that we may eat it, and die. Elijah said to her, Don't be afraid. Go and do as you have said, but make me a little cake from it first, and bring it out to me, and afterward make some for you and for your son. For Yahweh, the God of Israel, says, The jar of meal will not run out, and the jar of oil will not fail, until the day that Yahweh sends rain on the earth. She went and did according to the saying of Elijah, and he, and her household ate many days. The jar of meal didn't run out and the jar of oil didn't fail, according to Yahweh's word, which he spoke by Elijah. After these things, the son of the woman, the mistress of the house, became sick, and his sickness was so severe that there was no breath left in him. She said to Elijah, What have I to do with you, you man of God? You have come to me to bring my sin to memory, and to kill my son. He said to her, Give me your son. He took him out of her bosom, and carried him up into the room where he stayed, and laid him on his own bed. He cried to Yahweh and said, Yahweh my God, have you also brought evil on the widow with whom I am staying, by killing her son? He stretched himself on the child 3 times, and cried to Yahweh and said, Yahweh my God, please let this child's soul come into him again. Yahweh listened to the voice of Elijah, and the soul of the child came into him again, and he revived. Elijah took the child and brought him down out of the room into the house, and delivered him to his mother, and Elijah said, Behold, your son lives. The woman said to Elijah, Now I know that you are a man of God, and that Yahweh's word in your mouth is truth. Chapter 18. After many days, Yahweh's word came to Elijah, in the 3rd year, saying, Go, show yourself to Ahab, and I will send rain on the earth. Elijah went to show himself to Ahab. The famine was severe in Samaria. Ahab called Obadiah, who was over the household. Now Obadiah feared Yahweh greatly, for when Jezebel cut off Yahweh's prophets, Obadiah took 100 prophets, and hid them 50 to a cave, and fed them with bread and water. Ahab said to Obadiah, Go through the land, to all the springs of water, and to all the brooks. Perhaps we may find grass and save the horses and mules alive, that we not lose all the animals. So they divided the land between them to pass throughout it. Ahab went one way by himself, and Obadiah went another way by himself. As Obadiah was on the way, behold, Elijah met him. He recognized him, and fell on his face, and said, Is it you, my lord Elijah? He answered him, It is I. Go, tell your lord, behold, Elijah is here. He said, How have I sinned, that you would deliver your servant into the hand of Ahab, to kill me? As Yahweh your God lives, there is no nation or kingdom where my lord has not sent to seek you. When they said, He is not here, he took an oath of the kingdom and nation that they didn't find you. Now you say, Go, tell your lord, behold, Elijah is here. It will happen, as soon as I leave you, that Yahweh's spirit will carry you I don't know where, and so when I come and tell Ahab, and he can't find you, he will kill me. But I, your servant, have feared Yahweh from my youth. Wasn't it told my lord what I did when Jezebel killed Yahweh's prophets, how I hid 100 men of Yahweh's prophets with 50 to a cave, and fed them with bread and water? Now you say, Go, tell your lord, behold, Elijah is here. He will kill me. Elijah said, As Yahweh of armies lives, before whom I stand, I will surely show myself to him today. So Obadiah went to meet Ahab, and told him, and Ahab went to meet Elijah. When Ahab saw Elijah, Ahab said to him, Is that you troubler of Israel? He answered, I have not troubled Israel, but you and your father's house, in that you have forsaken Yahweh's commandments and you have followed the Baals. Now therefore send, and gather to me all Israel to Mount Carmel, and 450 of the prophets of Baal, and 400 of the prophets of the Asherah, who eat at Jezebel's table. So Ahab sent to all the children of Israel, and gathered the prophets together to Mount Carmel. Elijah came near to all the people, and said, How long will you waver between the 2 sides? If Yahweh is God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him. The people didn't say a word. Then Elijah said to the people, even I only, am left as a prophet of Yahweh, but Baal's prophets are 450 men. Let them therefore give us 2 bulls, and let them choose 1 bull for themselves, and cut it in pieces, and lay it on the wood, and put no fire under, and I will dress the other bull, and lay it on the wood, and put no fire under it. You call on the name of your God, and I will call on Yahweh's name. The God who answers by fire, let him be God. All the people answered, What you say is good. Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, Choose 1 bull for yourselves, and dress it first, for you are many, and call on the name of your God, but put no fire under it. They took the bull which was given them, and they dressed it, and called on the name of Baal from morning even until noon, saying, Baal, hear us. But there was no voice, and nobody answered. They leaped about the altar which was made. At noon, Elijah mocked them, and said, Cry aloud, for he is a god. Either he is deep in thought, or he has gone somewhere, or he is on a journey, or perhaps he sleeps and must be awakened. They cried aloud, and cut themselves in their way with knives and lances until the blood gushed out on them. When midday was past, they prophesied until the time of the evening offering, but there was no voice, no answer, and nobody paid attention. Elijah said to all the people, Come near to me, and all the people came near to him. He repaired Yahweh's altar that had been thrown down. Elijah took 12 stones, according to the number of the tribes of the sons of Jacob, to whom Yahweh's word came, saying, Israel shall be your name. With the stones he built an altar in Yahweh's name. He made a trench around the altar large enough to contain 2 seahs of seed. He put the wood in order, and cut the bull in pieces and laid it on the wood. He said, Fill 4 jars with water, and pour it on the burnt offering and on the wood. He said, Do it a 2nd time, and they did it the 2nd time. He said, Do it a 3rd time, and they did it the 3rd time. The water ran around the altar, and he also filled the trench with water. At the time of the evening offering, Elijah the prophet came near and said, Yahweh, the God of Abraham, of Isaac, and of Israel, let it be known today that you are God in Israel and that I am your servant, and that I have done all these things at your word. Hear me, Yahweh, hear me, that this people may know that you, Yahweh, are God, and that you have turned their heart back again. Then Yahweh's fire fell and consumed the burnt offering, the wood, the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell on their faces. They said, Yahweh, he is God. Yahweh, he is God. Elijah said to them, Seize the prophets of Baal. Don't let one of them escape. They seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon and killed them there. Elijah said to Ahab, Get up, eat and drink, for there is the sound of abundance of rain. So Ahab went up to eat and to drink. Elijah went up to the top of Carmel, and he bowed himself down on the earth, and put his face between his knees. He said to his servant, Go up now and look toward the sea. He went up and looked, then said, There is nothing. He said, Go again 7 times. On the 7th time, he said, Behold, a small cloud, like a man's hand, is rising out of the sea. He said, Go up, tell Ahab, Get ready and go down, so that the rain doesn't stop you. In a little while, the sky grew black with clouds and wind, and there was a great rain. Ahab rode, and went to Jezreel. Yahweh's hand was on Elijah, and he tucked his cloak into his belt and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel. Chapter 19. Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done, and how he had killed all the prophets with the sword. Then Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah, saying, So let the gods do to me, and more also, if I don't make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow about this time. When he saw that, he arose and ran for his life, and came to Beersheba, which belongs to Judah, and left his servant there. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness, and came and sat down under a juniper tree. Then he requested for himself that he might die, and said, It is enough. Now, O Yahweh, take away my life, for I am not better than my fathers. He lay down and slept under a juniper tree, and behold, an angel touched him, and said to him, Arise and eat. He looked, and behold, there was at his head a cake baked on the coals, and a jar of water. He ate and drank, and lay down again. Yahweh's angel came again the second time, and touched him, and said, Arise and eat, because the journey is too great for you. He arose, and ate and drank, and went in the strength of that food 40 days and 40 nights to Horeb, God's mountain. He came to a cave there, and camped there, and behold, Yahweh's word came to him, and he said to him, What are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I have been very jealous for Yahweh, the God of armies, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life, to take it away. He said, Go out and stand on the mountain before Yahweh. Behold, Yahweh passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke in pieces the rocks before Yahweh, but Yahweh was not in the wind. After the wind there was an earthquake, but Yahweh was not in the earthquake. After the earthquake a fire passed, but Yahweh was not in the fire. After the fire, there was a still small voice. When Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his mantle, went out, and stood in the entrance of the cave. Behold, a voice came to him, and said, What are you doing here, Elijah? He said, I have been very jealous for Yahweh, the God of armies, for the children of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life, to take it away. Yahweh said to him, Go, return on your way to the wilderness of Damascus. When you arrive, anoint Hazael to be king over Syria. Anoint Jehu the son of Nimshi to be king over Israel, and anoint Elisha the son of Shaphat of Abel-Meholah to be prophet in your place. He who escapes from the sword of Hazael, Jehu will kill, and he who escapes from the sword of Jehu, Elisha will kill. Yet I reserved 7,000 in Israel, all the knees of which have not bowed to Baal, and every mouth which has not kissed him. So he departed from there and found Elisha the son of Shaphat, who was plowing with 12 yoke of oxen before him, and he with the 12th. Elijah went over to him and put his mantle on him. Elisha left the oxen and ran after Elijah, and said, Let me please kiss my father and my mother, and then I will follow you. He said to him, Go back again, for what have I done to you? He returned from following him, and took the yoke of oxen, killed them, and boiled their meat with the oxen's equipment, and gave to the people, and they ate. Then he arose, and went after Elijah, and served him. Chapter 20. Ben-Hadad the king of Syria gathered all his army together, and there were 32 kings with him, with horses and chariots. He went up and besieged Samaria, and fought against it. He sent messengers into the city to Ahab king of Israel and said to him, Ben-Hadad says, Your silver and your gold are mine. Your wives also and your children, even the best, are mine. The king of Israel answered, It is according to your saying, my lord, O king. I am yours, and all that I have. The messengers came again and said, Ben-Hadad says, I sent indeed to you, saying, You shall deliver me your silver, your gold, your wives, and your children, but I will send my servants to you tomorrow about this time, and they will search your house and the houses of your servants. Whatever is pleasant in your eyes, they will put it in their hand, and take it away. Then the king of Israel called all the elders of the land, and said, Please notice how this man seeks mischief, for he sent to me for my wives, and for my children, and for my silver, and for my gold, and I didn't deny him. All the elders and all the people said to him, Don't listen, and don't consent. Therefore he said to the messengers of Ben-Hadad, Tell my lord the king, all that you sent for to your servant at the first I will do, but this thing I cannot do. The messengers departed and brought him back the message. Ben-Hadad sent to him, and said, The gods do so to me, and more also, if the dust of Samaria will be enough for handfuls for all the people who follow me. The king of Israel answered, Tell him, Don't let him who puts on his armor brag like he who takes it off. When Ben-Hadad heard this message as he was drinking, he and the kings in the pavilions, he said to his servants, Prepare to attack. So they prepared to attack the city. Behold, a prophet came near to Ahab king of Israel, and said, Yahweh says, Have you seen all this great multitude? Behold, I will deliver it into your hand today. Then you will know that I am Yahweh. Ahab said, By whom? He said, Yahweh says, By the young men of the princes of the provinces. Then he said, Who shall begin the battle? He answered, You. Then he mustered the young men of the princes of the provinces, and they were 232. After them, he mustered all the people, even all the children of Israel, being 7,000. They went out at noon. But Ben-Hadad was drinking himself drunk in the pavilions, he and the kings, the 32 kings who helped him. The young men of the princes of the provinces went out first, and Ben-Hadad sent out, and they told him, saying, Men are coming out from Samaria. He said, If they have come out for peace, take them alive, or if they have come out for war, take them alive. So these went out of the city, the young men of the princes of the provinces, and the army which followed them. They each killed his men. The Syrians fled, and Israel pursued them. Ben-Hadad the king of Syria escaped on a horse with horsemen. The king of Israel went out and struck the horses and chariots, and killed the Syrians with a great slaughter. The prophet came near to the king of Israel and said to him, Go, strengthen yourself, and plan what you must do, for at the return of the year, the king of Syria will come up against you. The servants of the king of Syria said to him, Their God is a God of the hills, therefore they were stronger than we. But let's fight against them in the plain, and surely we will be stronger than they. Do this thing, take the kings away, every man out of his place, and put captains in their place. Muster an army like the army that you have lost, horse for horse and chariot for chariot. We will fight against them in the plain, and surely we will be stronger than they are. He listened to their voice and did so. At the return of the year, Ben-Hadad mustered the Syrians and went up to effect a fight against Israel. The children of Israel were mustered and given provisions, and went against them. The children of Israel encamped before them like two little flocks of young goats, but the Syrians filled the country. A man of God came near and spoke to the king of Israel, and said, Yahweh says, because the Syrians have said, Yahweh is a God of the hills, but he is not a God of the valleys, therefore I will deliver all this great multitude into your hand, and you shall know that I am Yahweh. They encamped opposite each other for 7 days. Then on the 7th day the battle was joined, and the children of Israel killed 100,000 footmen of the Syrians in 1 day. But the rest fled to Aphek, into the city, and the wall fell on 27,000 men who were left. Ben-Hadad fled and came into the city, into an inner room. His servants said to him, See now, we have heard that the kings of the house of Israel are merciful kings. Please let us put sackcloth on our bodies and ropes on our heads, and go out to the king of Israel. Maybe he will save your life. So they put sackcloth on their bodies and ropes on their heads, and came to the king of Israel, and said, Your servant Ben-Hadad says, Please let me live. He said, Is he still alive? He is my brother. Now the men observed diligently and hurried to take this phrase, and they said, Your brother Ben-Hadad. Then he said, Go, bring him. Then Ben-Hadad came out to him, and he caused him to come up into the chariot. Ben-Hadad said to him, The cities which my father took from your father I will restore. You shall make streets for yourself in Damascus, as my father made in Samaria. I, said Ahab, will let you go with this covenant. So he made a covenant with him and let him go. Chapter 21. A certain man of the sons of the prophets said to his fellow by Yahweh's word, Please strike me. The men refused to strike him. Then he said to him, Because you have not obeyed Yahweh's voice, behold, as soon as you have departed from me, a lion will kill you. As soon as he had departed from him, a lion found him and killed him. Then he found another man, and said, Please strike me. The men struck him and wounded him. So the prophet departed and waited for the king by the way, and disguised himself with his headband over his eyes. As the king passed by, he cried to the king, and he said, Your servant went out into the middle of the battle, and behold, a man came over and brought a man to me, and said, Guard this man. If by any means he is missing, then your life shall be for his life, or else you shall pay a talent of silver. As your servant was busy here and there, he was gone. The king of Israel said to him, So shall your judgment be. You yourself have decided it. He hurried, and took the headband away from his eyes, and the king of Israel recognized that he was one of the prophets. He said to him, Yahweh says, Because you have let go out of your hand the men whom I had devoted to destruction, therefore your life will take the place of his life, and your people take the place of his people. The king of Israel went to his house sullen and angry, and came to Samaria. After these things, Naboth the Jezreelite had a vineyard which was in Jezreel, next to the palace of Ahab king of Samaria. Ahab spoke to Naboth, saying, Give me your vineyard, that I may have it for a garden of herbs, because it is near my house, and I will give you for it a better vineyard than it. Or, if it seems good to you, I will give you its worth in money. Naboth said to Ahab, May Yahweh forbid me, that I should give the inheritance of my fathers to you. Ahab came into his house sullen and angry because of the word which Naboth the Jezreelite had spoken to him, for he had said, I will not give you the inheritance of my fathers. He laid himself down on his bed, and turned away his face, and would eat no bread. But Jezebel his wife came to him, and said to him, Why is your spirit so sad that you eat no bread? He said to her, Because I spoke to Naboth the Jezreelite, and said to him, Give me your vineyard for money, or else, if it pleases you, I will give you another vineyard for it. He answered, I will not give you my vineyard. Jezebel his wife said to him, Do you now govern the kingdom of Israel? Arise, and eat bread, and let your heart be merry. I will give you the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite. So she wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, and sent the letters to the elders and to the nobles who were in his city, who lived with Naboth. She wrote in the letters, saying, Proclaim a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. Set 2 men, wicked fellows, before him, and let them testify against him, saying, You cursed God and the king. Then carry him out, and stone him to death. The men of his city, even the elders and the nobles who lived in his city, did as Jezebel had instructed them in the letters which she had written and sent to them. They proclaimed a fast, and set Naboth on high among the people. The 2 men, the wicked fellows, came in and sat before him. The wicked fellows testified against him, even against Naboth, in the presence of the people, saying, Naboth cursed God and the king. Then they carried him out of the city and stoned him to death with stones. Then they sent to Jezebel, saying, Naboth has been stoned and is dead. When Jezebel heard that Naboth had been stoned and was dead, Jezebel said to Ahab, Arise, take possession of the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, which he refused to give you for money, for Naboth is not alive, but dead. When Ahab heard that Naboth was dead, Ahab rose up to go down to the vineyard of Naboth the Jezreelite, to take possession of it. Yahweh's word came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, Arise, go down to meet Ahab king of Israel, who dwells in Samaria. Behold, he is in the vineyard of Naboth, where he has gone down to take possession of it. You shall speak to him, saying, Yahweh says, Have you killed and also taken possession? You shall speak to him, saying, Yahweh says, In the place where dogs lick the blood of Naboth, dogs will lick your blood, even yours. Ahab said to Elijah, Have you found me, my enemy? He answered, I have found you, because you have sold yourself to do that which is evil in Yahweh's sight. Behold, I will bring evil on you, and will utterly sweep you away, and will cut off from Ahab everyone who urinates against a wall, and him who is shut up, and him who is left at large in Israel. I will make your house like the house of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, and like the house of Baasha the son of Ahijah, for the provocation with which you have provoked me to anger, and have made Israel to sin. Yahweh also spoke of Jezebel, saying, The dogs will eat Jezebel by the rampart of Jezreel. The dogs will eat he who dies of Ahab in the city, and the birds of the sky will eat he who dies in the field. But there was no one like Ahab, who sold himself to do that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, whom Jezebel his wife stirred up. He did very abominably in following idols, according to all that the Amorites did, whom Yahweh cast out before the children of Israel. When Ahab heard those words, he tore his clothes, put sackcloth on his body, fasted, lay in sackcloth, and went about despondently. Yahweh's word came to Elijah the Tishbite, saying, See how Ahab humbles himself before me. Because he humbles himself before me, I will not bring the evil in his days, but I will bring the evil on his house in his son's day. Chapter 22. They continued 3 years without war between Syria and Israel. In the 3rd year, Jehoshaphat the king of Judah came down to the king of Israel. The king of Israel said to his servants, You know that Ramoth Gilead is ours, and we do nothing, and don't take it out of the hand of the king of Syria. He said to Jehoshaphat, Will you go with me to battle to Ramoth Gilead? Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. Jehoshaphat said to the king of Israel, Please inquire first for Yahweh's word. Then the king of Israel gathered the prophets together, about 400 men, and said to them, Should I go against Ramoth Gilead to battle, or should I refrain? They said, Go up, for the Lord will deliver it into the hand of the king. But Jehoshaphat said, Isn't there here a prophet of Yahweh, that we may inquire of him? The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, There is yet one man by whom we may inquire of Yahweh, Micaiah the son of Imlah, but I hate him, for he does not prophesy good concerning me, but evil. Jehoshaphat said, Don't let the king say so. Then the king of Israel called an officer, and said, Quickly get Micaiah the son of Imlah. Now the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat the king of Judah were sitting each on his throne, arrayed in their robes, in an open place at the entrance of the gate of Samaria, and all the prophets were prophesying before them. Zedekiah the son of Chenaanah made himself horns of iron, and said, Yahweh says, With these you will push the Syrians, until they are consumed. All the prophets prophesied so, saying, Go up to Ramoth Gilead and prosper, for Yahweh will deliver it into the hand of the king. The messenger who went to call Micaiah spoke to him, saying, See now, the prophets declare good to the king with one mouth. Please let your word be like the word of one of them, and speak good. Micaiah said, As Yahweh lives, what Yahweh says to me, that I will speak. When he had come to the king said to him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall we forbear? He answered him, Go up and prosper, and Yahweh will deliver it into the hand of the king. The king said to him, How many times do I have to adjure you that you speak to me nothing but the truth in Yahweh's name? He said, I saw all Israel scattered on the mountains, as sheep that have no shepherd. Yahweh said, These have no master. Let them each return to his house in peace. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, Didn't I tell you that he would not prophesy good concerning me, but evil? Micaiah said, Therefore hear Yahweh's word. I saw Yahweh sitting on his throne, and all the army of heaven standing by him on his right hand and on his left. Yahweh said, Who will entice Ahab, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? One said one thing, and another said another. A spirit came out and stood before Yahweh, and said, I will entice him. Yahweh said to him, How? He said, I will go out and will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. He said, You will entice him, and will also prevail. Go out and do so. Now therefore, behold, Yahweh has put a lying spirit in the mouth of all these your prophets, and Yahweh has spoken evil concerning you. Then Zedekiah the son of Chenaanah came near and struck Micaiah on the cheek, and said, Which way did Yahweh's spirit go for me to speak to you? Micaiah said, Behold, you will see on the day when you go into an inner room to hide yourself. The king of Israel said, Take Micaiah, and carry him back to Amon the governor of the city and to Joash the king's son. Say, the king says, Put this fellow in the prison, and feed him with bread of affliction and with water of affliction, until I come in peace. Micaiah said, If you return at all in peace, Yahweh has not spoken by me. He said, Listen, all you people. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat the king of Judah went up to Ramoth Gilead. The king of Israel said to Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself and go into the battle, but you put on your robes. The king of Israel disguised himself and went into the battle. Now the king of Syria had commanded the 32 captains of his chariots, saying, Don't fight with small nor great, except only with the king of Israel. When the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, they said, Surely that is the king of Israel, and they came over to fight against him. Jehoshaphat cried out. When the captains of the chariots saw that it was not the king of Israel, they turned back from pursuing him. A certain man drew his bow at random, and struck the king of Israel between the joints of the armor. Therefore he said to the driver of his chariot, Turn around, and carry me out of the battle, for I am severely wounded. The battle increased that day. The king was propped up in his chariot facing the Syrians, and died at evening. The blood ran out of the wound into the bottom of the chariot. A cry went throughout the army about the going down of the sun, saying, Every man to his city, and every man to his country. So the king died, and was brought to Samaria, and they buried the king in Samaria. They washed the chariot by the pool of Samaria, and the dogs licked up his blood where the prostitutes washed themselves, according to Yahweh's word which he spoke. Now the rest of the acts of Ahab, and all that he did, and the ivory house which he built, and all the cities that he built, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? So Ahab slept with his fathers, and Ahaziah his son reigned in his place. Jehoshaphat the son of Asa began to reign over Judah in the 4th year of Ahab king of Israel. Jehoshaphat was 35 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Azubah the daughter of Shilhi. He walked in all the way of Asa his father. He didn't turn away from it, doing that which was right in Yahweh's eyes. However, the high places were not taken away. The people still sacrificed and burned incense on the high places. Jehoshaphat made peace with the king of Israel. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat, and his might that he showed, and how he fought, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Judah? The remnant of the Sodomites that remained in the days of his father Asa, he put away out of the land. There was no king in Edom. A deputy ruled. Jehoshaphat made ships of Tarshish to go to Ophir for gold, but they didn't go, for the ships wrecked at Ezion-Geber. Then Ahaziah the son of Ahab said to Jehoshaphat, Let my servants go with your servants in the ships. But Jehoshaphat would not. Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in his father David's city. Jehoram his son reigned in his place. Ahaziah the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel in Samaria in the 17th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and he reigned 2 years over Israel. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, and walked in the way of his father, and in the way of his mother, and in the way of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, in which he made Israel to sin. He served Baal and worshipped him, and provoked Yahweh, the God of Israel, to anger in all the ways that his father had done so. 2 Kings. Chapter 1. Moab rebelled against Israel after the death of Ahab. Ahaziah fell down through the lattice in his upper room that was in Samaria, and was sick. So he sent messengers, and said to them, Go, inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, whether I will recover of this sickness. But Yahweh's angel said to Elijah the Tishbite, Arise, go up to meet the messengers of the king of Samaria, and tell them, Is it because there is no God in Israel that you go to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Now therefore Yahweh says, You will not come down from the bed where you have gone up, but you will surely die. Then Elijah departed. The messengers returned to him, and he said to them, Why is it that you have returned? They said to him, A man came up to meet us, and said to us, Go, return to the king who sent you, and tell him, Yahweh says, Is it because there is no God in Israel that you send to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron? Therefore you will not come down from the bed where you have gone up, but you will surely die. He said to them, What kind of man was he who came up to meet you and told you these words? They answered him, He was a hairy man, and wearing a leather belt around his waist. He said, It's Elijah the Tishbite. Then the king sent a captain of 50 with his 50 to him. He went up to him, and behold, he was sitting on the top of the hill. He said to him, Man of God, the king has said, Come down. Elijah answered to the captain of 50, If I am a man of God, then let fire come down from the sky and consume you and your 50. Then fire came down from the sky, and consumed him and his 50. Again he sent to him another captain of 50 with his 50. He answered him, Man of God, the king has said, Come down quickly. Elijah answered them, If I am a man of God, then let fire come down from the sky and consume you and your 50. Then God's fire came down from the sky, and consumed him and his 50. Again he sent the captain of a third 50 with his 50. The third captain of 50 went up, and came and fell on his knees before Elijah, and begged him, and said to him, Man of God, please let my life and the life of these 50 of your servants be precious in your sight. Behold, fire came down from the sky and consumed the last 2 captains of 50 with their 50s. But now let my life be precious in your sight. Yahweh's angel said to Elijah, Go down with him. Don't be afraid of him. Then he arose and went down with him to the king. He said to him, Yahweh says, Because you have sent messengers to inquire of Baal-zebub, the god of Ekron, is it because there is no God in Israel to inquire of his word? Therefore you will not come down from the bed where you have gone up, but you will surely die. So he died according to Yahweh's word which Elijah had spoken. Jehoram began to reign in his place in the 2nd year of Jehoram the son of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, because he had no son. Now the rest of the acts of Ahaziah which he did, aren't they written in the book of the Chronicles of the kings of Israel? Chapter 2. When Yahweh was about to take Elijah up by a whirlwind into heaven, Elijah went with Elisha from Gilgal. Elijah said to Elisha, please wait here, for Yahweh has sent me as far as Bethel. Elisha said, as Yahweh lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So they went down to Bethel. The sons of the prophets who were at Bethel came out to Elisha, and said to him, do you know that Yahweh will take away your master from over you today? He said, yes, I know it. Hold your peace. Elijah said to him, Elisha, please wait here, for Yahweh has sent me to Jericho. He said, as Yahweh lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So they came to Jericho. The sons of the prophets who were at Jericho came near to Elisha, and said to him, do you know that Yahweh will take away your master from over you today? He answered, yes, I know it. Hold your peace. Elijah said to him, please wait here, for Yahweh has sent me to the Jordan. He said, as Yahweh lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. Then they both went on. 50 men of the sons of the prophets went and stood opposite them at a distance, and they both stood by the Jordan. Elijah took his mantle, and rolled it up, and struck the waters, and they were divided here and there, so that they both went over on dry ground. When they had gone over, Elijah said to Elisha, ask what I shall do for you, before I am taken from you. Elisha said, please let a double portion of your spirit be on me. He said, you have asked a hard thing. If you see me when I am taken from you, it will be so for you, but if not, it will not be so. As they continued on and talked, behold, a chariot of fire and horses of fire separated them, and Elijah went up by a whirlwind into heaven. Elisha saw it, and he cried, my father, the chariots of Israel and its horsemen. He saw him no more. Then he took hold of his own clothes and tore them in 2 pieces. He also took up Elijah's mantle that fell from him, and went back and stood by the bank of the Jordan. He took Elijah's mantle that fell from him, and struck the waters, and said, where is Yahweh, the God of Elijah? When he also had struck the waters, they were divided apart, and Elisha went over. When the sons of the prophets who were at Jericho facing him saw him, they said, the spirit of Elijah rests on Elisha. They came to meet him, and bowed themselves to the ground before him. They said to him, see now, there are with your servants 50 strong men. Please let them go and seek your master. Perhaps Yahweh's spirit has taken him up, and put him on some mountain or into some valley. He said, don't send them. When they urged him until he was ashamed, he said, send them. Therefore they sent 50 men, and they searched for 3 days, but didn't find him. They came back to him while he stayed at Jericho, and he said to them, didn't I tell you, don't go? The men of the city said to Elisha, behold, please, the situation of the city is pleasant, as my lord sees, but the water is bad, and the land is barren. He said, bring me a new jar, and put salt in it. Then they brought it to him. He went out to the spring of the waters, and threw salt into it, and said, Yahweh says, I have healed these waters. There shall not be from there any more death or barren wasteland. So the waters were healed to this day, according to Elisha's word which he spoke. He went up from there to Bethel. As he was going up by the way, some youths came out of the city and mocked him, and said to him, go up, you baldy. Go up, you baldy. He looked behind him and saw them, and cursed them in Yahweh's name. Then 2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of those youths. He went from there to Mount Carmel, and from there he returned to Samaria. Chapter 3. Now Jehoram the son of Ahab began to reign over Israel in Samaria in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat king of Judah, and reigned 12 years. He did that which was evil in Yahweh's sight, but not like his father and like his mother, for he put away the pillar of Baal that his father had made. Nevertheless he held to the sins of Jeroboam the son of Nebat, with which he made Israel to sin. He didn't depart from them. Now Mesha king of Moab was a sheep breeder, and he supplied the king of Israel with 100,000 lambs and the wool of 100,000 rams. But when Ahab was dead, the king of Moab rebelled against the king of Israel. King Jehoram went out of Samaria at that time, and mustered all Israel. He went and sent to Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, saying, the king of Moab has rebelled against me. Will you go with me against Moab to battle? He said, I will go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. Then he said, which way shall we go up? Jehoram answered, the way of the wilderness of Edom. So the king of Israel went with the king of Judah and the king of Edom, and they marched for 7 days along a circuitous route. There was no water for the army or for the animals that followed them. The king of Israel said, alas! For Yahweh has called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. But Jehoshaphat said, isn't there a prophet of Yahweh here, that we may inquire of Yahweh by him? One of the king of Israel's servants answered, Elisha the son of Shaphat, who poured water on the hands of Elijah, is here. Jehoshaphat said, Yahweh's word is with him. So the king of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the king of Edom went down to him. Elisha said to the king of Israel, what have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father, and to the prophets of your mother. The king of Israel said to him, no, for Yahweh has called these 3 kings together to deliver them into the hand of Moab. Elisha said, as Yahweh of armies lives, before whom I stand, surely, were it not that I respect the presence of Jehoshaphat the king of Judah, I would not look toward you, nor see you. But now bring me a musician. When the musician played, Yahweh's hand came on him. He said, Yahweh says, make this valley full of trenches. For Yahweh says, you will not see wind, neither will you see rain, yet that valley will be filled with water, and you will drink, both you and your livestock and your other animals. This is an easy thing in Yahweh's sight. He will also deliver the Moabites into your hand. You shall strike every fortified city and every choice city, and shall fell every good tree, and stop all springs of water, and mar every good piece of land with stones. In the morning, about the time of offering the sacrifice, behold, water came by the way of Edom, and the country was filled with water. Now when all the Moabites heard that the kings had come up to fight against them, they gathered themselves together, all who were able to put on armor, young and old, and stood on the border. They rose up early in the morning, and the sun shone on the water, and the Moabites saw the water opposite them as red as blood. They said, this is blood. The kings are surely destroyed, and they have struck each other. Now therefore, Moab, to the plunder. When they came to the camp of Israel, the Israelites rose up and struck the Moabites, so that they fled before them, and they went forward into the land attacking the Moabites. They beat down the cities, and on every good piece of land each man cast his stone, and filled it. They also stopped all the springs of water and cut down all the good trees, until in Kir Hareseth all they left was its stones. However the men armed with slings went around it and attacked it. When the king of Moab saw that the battle was too severe for him, he took with him 700 men who drew a sword, to break through to the king of Edom, but they could not. Then he took his oldest son who would have reigned in his place, and offered him for a burnt offering on the wall. There was great wrath against Israel, and they departed from him, and returned to their own land. Chapter 4. Now a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, your servant my husband is dead. You know that your servant feared Yahweh. Now the creditor has come to take for himself my 2 children to be slaves. Elisha said to her, what should I do for you? Tell me, what do you have in the house? She said, your servant has nothing in the house, except a pot of oil. Then he said, go, borrow empty containers from all your neighbors. Don't borrow just a few containers. Go in and shut the door on you and on your sons, and pour oil into all those containers, and set aside those which are full. So she went from him, and shut the door on herself and on her sons. They brought the containers to her, and she poured oil. When the containers were full, she said to her son, bring me another container. He said to her, there isn't another container. Then the oil stopped flowing. Then she came and told the men of God. He said, go, sell the oil, and pay your debt, and you and your sons live on the rest. One day Elisha went to Shunem, where there was a prominent woman, and she persuaded him to eat bread. So it was, that as often as he passed by, he turned in there to eat bread. She said to her husband, see now, I perceive that this is a holy man of God who passes by us continually. Please, let's make a little room on the roof. Let's set a bed, a table, a chair, and a lampstand for him there. When he comes to us, he can stay there. One day he came there, and he went to the room and lay there. He said to Gehazi his servant, call the Shunammite. When he had called her, she stood before him. He said to him, say now to her, behold, you have cared for us with all this care. What is to be done for you? Would you like to be spoken for to the king, or to the captain of the army? She answered, I dwell among my own people. He said, what then is to be done for her? Gehazi answered, most certainly she has no son, and her husband is old. He said, call her. When he had called her, she stood in the door. He said, at this season next year, you will embrace a son. She said, no, my lord, you men of God, do not lie to your servant. The woman conceived, and bore a son at that season when the time came around, as Elisha had said to her. When the child was grown, one day he went out to his father to the reapers. He said to his father, my head. My head. He said to his servant, carry him to his mother. When he had taken him and brought him to his mother, he sat on her knees until noon, and then died. She went up and laid him on the men of God's bed, and shut the door on him, and went out. She called to her husband and said, please send me one of the servants, and one of the donkeys, that I may run to the men of God and come again. He said, why would you want to go to him today? It is not a new moon or a Sabbath. She said, it's all right. Then she saddled a donkey, and said to her servant, drive, and go forward. Don't slow down for me, unless I ask you to. So she went, and came to the men of God to Mount Carmel. When the men of God saw her afar off, he said to Gehazi his servant, behold, there is the Shunammite. Please run now to meet her, and ask her, is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with your child? She answered, it is well. When she came to the men of God to the hill, she caught hold of his feet. Gehazi came near to thrust her away, but the men of God said, leave her alone, for her soul is troubled within her, and Yahweh has hidden it from me, and has not told me. Then she said, did I ask you for a son, my lord? Didn't I say, do not deceive me? Then he said to Gehazi, tuck your cloak into your belt, take my staff in your hand, and go your way. If you meet any man, don't greet him, and if anyone greets you, don't answer him again. Then lay my staff on the child's face. The child's mother said, as Yahweh lives, and as your soul lives, I will not leave you. So he arose, and followed her. Gehazi went ahead of them, and laid the staff on the child's face, but there was no voice and no hearing. Therefore he returned to meet him, and told him, the child has not awakened. When Elisha had come into the house, behold, the child was dead, and lying on his bed. He went in therefore, and shut the door on them both, and prayed to Yahweh. He went up and lay on the child, and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands. He stretched himself on him, and the child's flesh grew warm. Then he returned, and walked in the house once back and forth, then went up and stretched himself out on him. Then the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes. He called Gehazi, and said, call the Shunammite. So he called her. When she had come into him, he said, take up your son. Then she went in, fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, then she picked up her son, and went out. Elisha came again to Gilgal. There was a famine in the land, and the sons of the prophets were sitting before him, and he said to his servant, get the large pot, and boil stew for the sons of the prophets. One went out into the field to gather herbs, and found a wild vine, and gathered a lapful of wild gourds from it, and came and cut them up into the pot of stew, for they didn't recognize them. So they poured out for the men to eat. As they were eating some of the stew, they cried out and said, men of God, there is death in the pot. And they could not eat it. But he said, then bring meal. He threw it into the pot, and he said, serve it to the people, that they may eat. And there was nothing harmful in the pot. A man from Baal-Shalisha came, and brought the men of God some bread of the first fruits, 20 loaves of barley and fresh ears of grain in his sack. Elisha said, give to the people, that they may eat. His servant said, what, should I set this before 100 men? But he said, give it to the people, that they may eat, for Yahweh says, they will eat, and will have some left over. So he set it before them, and they ate and had some left over, according to Yahweh's word.